World Environment Day was this week. Land restoration, desertification, and drought resilience was the theme. On the slogan, Our Land, Our Future, We Are, #Generation Restoration. This call to action is vital because the world is losing at least 100 million hectares of healthy land each year. And over 75% of the world's land area is already degraded, probably faster than we can restore it. So, spread the word and push for land restoration. Welcome to Kaleidoscope with Savithri Rodrigo, where we are positive, daring, different. We celebrate Pride Month with one of Time's 100 most influential, navigate the startup world with a techpreneur, and sculpt a story with fabric on the show today. Did you know that Kaleidoscope is on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn? Subscribe, follow, and like us for more. To our brilliant partners on the show, Srilanka Life, CDB, and the Daily Morning, thank you.
CDB Hybrid Leasing. Enjoy exclusive interest rate and much more for hybrids, plug-in hybrids, and EV vehicles.
This is CDB Snapshot looking back at the week that was. Sri Lanka's headline inflation decelerated to 0.9% in May from April's 1.5%. The Lankan rupee appreciated by 7.3% against the US dollar up to end May. Sri Lanka's apparel exports earned 1,430 million US dollars from January to April, a 2.1% decline year on year. Isara Gunatilaka's film Shesha wins Best Dance Film at the Cannes World Film Festival. Dr. Asha DeVos has been appointed to the United Nations Secretary General's Scientific Advisory Board.
You focus on your goals. We will take care of the risks. Srilanka Life.
Welcome to Srilanka Life News Capsule. Sri Lanka has over 600 tech startups, and the reality is that it takes 3 to 5 years for a tech startup to turn a profit. In 2022, Sri Lanka's startup output was slightly above the phase average, and the tech startup ecosystem was third in the region. Quite a number of Lankan startups that have stood the test of time are PickMe, Odoc, Row Global, Takas.lk, DirectPay, Surge, and Layup, to name a few. With me today is the winner of Uber Springboard, founder and CTO of K-Reader, a subscription-based digital reading framework for local languages, Heshan J. Pires. For any entrepreneur or innovator for that matter, starting off in Sri Lanka is quite challenging. Especially for a tech startup like yourself. Why is that?
The main hurdle is like for SME, the amount of capital that you need to invest is like bare minimum. But for a tech startup, we are talking about high skill workers, and you need to pay them for their capacity, their caliber. So the minimum investment, even if you are bringing your own money or your friend's money into the business, that would be a substantial amount. The capital infusion is not a small amount, even at the initial stage.
How do you convince financial institutions or anyone for that matter to give you funding?
With the Sri Lankan financial markets, the way they analyze the things, they want something tangible as a collateral. The angel investments and the startup investment ecosystem in Sri Lanka is like somewhat in the early stage. And people are not really interested on investing on a startup merely on a basis of getting a higher valuation, but most of the Sri Lankan need the dividend as soon as they invest their money into a startup, which is not feasible for a startup because it takes many years for startups to reach the profitability.
So in what areas do you see promise for tech entrepreneurs in Sri Lanka?
One is AI, because there's a huge global hype when it's come to the AI landscape, and there are like multiple AI ventures coming from various regions in the globe, and they are solving many problems, and they are making the conventional processes into many advancements, and the growth would be massive for the next 3 to 5 years. And the second space would be the blockchain. It increases the transparency, or it can be leveraged for the fractional ownership, or even like hedging the real world assets into the blockchain space, and you can utilize that as a trading platform.
So, but to foster and nurture this ecosystem, what needs to be in place?
The collaborations. And also, second thing, we need as many startups as possible. So as startups, we need to work together with other startups, leveraging each other's skills, leveraging each other's technology for our growth. And the other one, having multiple startups. I believe personally, as a startup founder, we need at least 10,000 startups in the Sri Lankan ecosystem. And that is how we can take Sri Lanka to the next level as a startup nation, as an innovative nation, so that we are taking our products globally as global brands.
And now for a look at our markets this week. At the Colombo Stock Exchange, the all-share price index remained virtually unchanged, even as investors engaged in profit-taking, and average daily turnover levels fell. The US Department of Energy reported that crude oil inventories in the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is now at 340 million barrels, the highest since March, leading to oil prices falling by about 8% to $78 per barrel. A strong US dollar led to gold prices moving down slightly this week to $2,335 per ounce. Don Delson, a 75-year-old fine arts photographer, takes some breathtaking photos from a helicopter without doors when he's 2,000 feet above ground. Hawaii's Kilauea volcano has erupted again in its first southwest flank eruption in 50 years, giving us a magnificent sight to behold. She made headlines recently as one of Time magazine's top 100 most influential people for 2024. Rosanna Flamer Caldera is an LGBT rights activist who was the first female Sri Lankan representative to the International Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Trans and Intersex Association, the ILGA, and she went on to become its co-secretary general. She founded Equal Ground, an organization advocating for LGBTIQ rights in Sri Lanka, and is a co-founder of the Women's Support Group Organization for Lesbian, Bisexual and Transgender Women. She's also an NGO advisor for the Hirschfeld Eddy Foundation and the Global Fund for Women. 10th of June is the 20th anniversary of Equal Ground and the 20th Pride. So what better time than to have Rosanna join me in the studio today. Rosanna, congratulations. You're now one of Time's 100 most influential people. This recognition by Time, what does that do for your work and your end goal?
I just think that the recognition would also give me an opportunity to open more doors and make life a lot easier for the LGBTIQ community here.
What is the LGBTIQ situation in Sri Lanka today in terms of acceptance?
Well, in terms of acceptance, I think there is a lot more acceptance than there was, like, say, 5 years ago. We're still waiting for the laws to change, of course, and there has been movement with that as well.
So from when you started your activism to right now, what changes, if at all, do you see in society with regard to treatment of the LGBTIQ community?
Well, there's been a growing number of allies, yeah, and people who have actually joined hands to basically support and also assist the LGBTIQ community. And that was very prevalent when there was this case to the Supreme Court regarding the private members' bill saying it was unconstitutional. And there was more than 14, 15 cases filed against that case, yeah? And it led to an amazing Supreme Court decision as well. And there were other cases where allies like you also joined in, and we won the case against the police, for example. Police have been, far more accepting and tolerant and actually helpful with the LGBTIQ community.
A lot of our LGBTIQ plus people struggle when coming out. What is your advice to them, knowing what you know about our society and our country?
Our ethos has always been, let's learn about ourselves Let's be proud of who we are, and don't be ashamed of who you are, because you're wonderful, you're beautiful and fantastic, and you are a human being who loves differently. But try telling that to a family in the rural areas. Before the British came and imported their laws into Sri Lanka, everybody was fine with all of this.
Is there anything you'd like to say to Sri Lankan families about accepting their relatives and their children who belong to the LGBTIQ community?
Everybody's different, everybody loves differently. They all have, their own idiosyncrasies and their own likes and dislikes. So individuality should be celebrated, and their life should be celebrated and supported. As parents, we should love our children no matter what.
When you speak about the West, people may turn around and say, that's the West, they will practice whatever. But let's look at Asia, let's look at our part of the world. What can we learn from this part of the world about how we treat LGBTIQ people?
I would spotlight Thailand. Thailand never had a law criminalizing LGBTIQ persons, mainly because they were not conquered by the British and they didn't have British rule. But Thailand has been a basically full Buddhist country, and Buddhism doesn't play a role in politics over there. And as a result, they are far more accepting of people for who they are, and Thailand is booming. And it's a Buddhist country, and they are accepting of transgender people, accepting of LGBTIQ people. They're ready to pass gay marriage in Thailand. And as a Buddhist country, Sri Lanka, we should look to Thailand for, examples of how to be all accepting and all caring and all loving. Yeah.
What have you learned about humanity in your activism?
It's the yin and the yang. There's the good and the bad. And sometimes you close your mind to the good because you're saturated with bad. But I feel that everything, anything bad that happens, good will follow. Everything good that happens, bad will follow, because it is balance after all. So I think that, humans can be incredibly, incredibly cruel and awful, but they are also incredibly good and amazing. And I think we hear more about the awful than we hear about the good. When somebody goes and saves a kitty from the tree, nobody hears about that. But it's something good, yeah? So it's all those goodnesses put together that counter the bad.
Good luck with everything you're doing, Rosanna. Like Anarchy, these sculptures are intricate, they're complex and surreal. They mediate tangled emotions and intricate emotions, all put together in this soft sculpture by Randhika De Silva.
This is Anarchy. This talks about the jungle of thoughts inside my mind, and the knots resemble the chaotic moments that you have in your life. And it's me trying to experience this as a third person walking around the jungle, rather than having it in my mind. It's something that I can walk through and experience.
So these sculptures articulate turmoil, vulnerability and resilience. This is artist Randhika De Silva's debut solo exhibition, and she draws on the language of soft sculpture from the likes of Yayoi Kusama and Sarah Lucas.
So my process starts with sketching on paper, and then I try to bring out the 3D format in fabric, which is through manipulating and surface detailing. Once I have made the basic structure with polycotton and fabric, I do this surface detailing in a way that it resembles the concept that I have done.
So, as Randhika De Silva wants us to do, let's take a deeper look at the human psyche. See you next week.